Hello and welcome to Higgscast Playing God. Tonight, we're going to be talking about house rules, how to implement them, how to enforce them, and universal ones that we use in our day-to-day games. Because, as we all know, we're constantly gaming 24/7, 368 days a year.
It's a lot
We've,
of days.
we've expanded time itself in order to get more games in.
It feels like that sometimes. It really does.
That's right.
There's never enough time. There's never enough time.
So house rules. Some people love them, some people hate them. Pretty much everybody uses them at some point in time. To get some nitpicky stuff out of the way at the very least.
I
And
forgot who I was. Who am I?
Oh, that's right. Yeah, you're Jesse Cromines,
Hi, that's me. Hello.
and Xander Nolan is here too.
Hey, man.
Hey, man.
It's obligatory at this point. It's like I did it the first one, I did it the second one. I've got to do it every single one from now on.
Hey,
it's
man.
just my thing.
Oh, you
Hey,
got to
man.
do the Josh the Chimney thing of, hey, man.
Hey, man. Dude, my buddy actually had a Josh the Chimney moment. it was so weird. I was like, dude, where the fuck did that come from? Oh.
As esoteric and inside jokey as that is, I'm Nick Logie, as we
Absolutely.
all know, and
The host.
that's right. I'm the host. Woo!
Yeah.
Let's start talking about dice, because dice are where most of the house rules I see come from. For example, how to roll them, and how to commit to them, and rerolls and shit like
Oh,
that.
boy. Man, I bitch at people about how to roll dice all the time. I feel bad about it, honestly.
What do you bitch at them for? Why don't we get some examples
Like,
up in here?
if for those of you at home, if you're sitting in front of dice and there's near you, take something in your hand, and typically, whenever somebody rolls something, they'll like roll it forward in front of them. They'll take a die, they'll shake it in their hand, and they'll move their hand from head to table down, falling out of the bottom of their hand, and it'll roll across the table. This is problematic because it can bump into things, it can go off the table, it can't roll right. It just makes me like, because if a die rolls off a table, it makes me upset, and I just hate the noise, and then it doesn't count, and they have to roll again.
That actually right there, in and of itself, is a house rule that I see pretty much everybody use. And if you can't hit the table, you can't hit the enemy. So if
wow, that's not a bad one.
I like that one.
Okay, here's the thing: if I did that, my players would never hit anything ever.
I have a compromised one of if it falls off the table, then you re-roll it, even if it's the best possible solution for you.
Yeah. That's basic. But what I'll do is, if I see people rolling crazily, is I'll have them hold the die in their hand, like their hand underneath the die, level with the table, and then spin their hand around, rolling the edge of the die, pulling their hand towards the top of the die so that the die is then between the hand and the table. It drops straight down, bounces, rolls. That's how I like to do it, because it doesn't roll, it bounces. Now, if you're at a craps table, they'll fucking shank you for that. But we're not gambling, we're playing D&D.
That's right.
And that's a very easy way to do it, because if they don't have their hand in front of it, they can't block me from seeing it. It's right in front of them so they can see it easily, and it doesn't get in the way, because a lot of times I use minis and there are pieces and they could knock them out of the way and could misplace somebody. So my little house rule, my little minor rule, and it's about rolling, and there are much better, bigger rules. There are bigger things to give a shit about, but I still am very anal about it, is just roll it in front of you. Don't hit anybody else. Stop throwing it off the table.
High stakes D&D. When you describe that, I imagine like a cyber robot hand. You said twist your wrist. I was imagining the hand doing like a full 720 spin, and then they let go of the die.
The double jack spin.
The thing that I prefer is either dice towers or dice trays, because at that point in time, it's a dedicated, allocated space that you can roll it however you feel is comfortable, and then isn't causing those issues. They're not falling down. They're not knocking things over.
Now,
As much
my
as the
own
technique for rolling is nice and all, we have already discussed this
Yes.
on the
yeah.
setting up section. I mean, it's a good recap, but I'm kind of wanting to stick to the actual rules that you would implement with it. So for example, for how you've described rolling your dice, would you make that mandatory for people at your gaming table?
Now,
Uh,
now mandatory, like, so I actually make it, and I've talked about this before. I make it so mandatory, I do it myself. Because the reason why I do these rules and I have them roll this way is so that I can see it. So there's no possible cheating, there's no possible misunderstanding. I can do the math as well as them because I know my players' character sheets well enough that I can go, okay, Callie rolled a 9, she's got a +7, she hit the AC of 14 easily. And I can just begin thinking immediately while they're rolling. And I hold that rule so dear that I do the same thing, which leads me to an unfortunate problem where I can't fudge dice. I'll roll in front of them. It'll be established that the gladiator or whatever that's fighting them has a +5 with a whip, and they see that I rolled a 9. The player knows they have a 14. They know they're fucked. And that's because I like it's the dice choose how things go because like and sometimes I make a rule where I don't roll enough. Where if I want my players to succeed, I won't even make them roll. I'll just say they get it. And same with me. If I know I want to hit them, I won't even roll. Or if I know this guy is gonna beat him, I'll be like, I'll make the DC crazy impossible. But when it comes to dice, the dice choose the fucking story no matter what, even when it's me. Like I am not exempt from the dice's fickle nature. So it is in fact mandatory.
fair enough. Yeah. I always implement that if the die falls off the table, you re-roll it regardless of what it lands on. And if you drop it off the table twice, then no dice, you fail.
Now,
No
let
dice,
me
you
let me
lost your
ask you guys
privileges.
this. Now, since we're talking about dice and rules, this is kind of a toss-up, like in the air rule. I've seen many different people do many different rules. When a die, let's say you're rolling on a battle mat, or you've got papers or all kinds of shit, and you're rolling a die,
Hmm.
and it lands cocked. And cocked, for those of you who don't know what that is it, isn't exactly face up in one way or
It's
the other.
ambiguous as
For
to what the number is.
yeah, it's like it could be a 12 or it could be a 2. For D20s, it's more common than others. Like a D6, it's fucking impossible. How do you guys decide how to deal with a cocked die? Do you like what do you guys do? Nick, what do you do?
My technique is rather simple. So when it comes to a cocked die, I will pick up a flat die like a D6 and put it on top of the other die. If the D6 slides
That
off, then it's cocked. You re-roll the damn thing. If it places it just fine and there's no like wiggle room for it, even if it depresses the die a little bit, then whatever that is what it is.
and that's the common one. That's what I see all the time. That's very, very, very fair. Especially if it's like between a 20 and like a 17, and they're like, "Oh, I want this. I want the 20." They'll put a D6 on top of it, and then it'll slide. The other thing I'll do is if I do that method, and I put a die on, and it slides off and sets it to where it's not cocked, that number that it is now is the one it is.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was getting at with that last part.
Yeah.
Yeah. My means is let's say it's like dumped up against a pad of paper or something.
Yeah.
I don't want to move the die, and I don't want to put other dice like into the mix. The object that basically caused the roadblock should be slowly moved away, and however the die lands is however the die lands.
Ah, that's also a similar
Now,
technique for 40K.
oh
Yeah.
yeah.
If you
Yeah,
move if you
that's
move
true.
the terrain, however it lands is how it lands.
Mine is very barbaric, very archaic, but it's very quick because my players take long as fuck times to roll die. What I do, and again, pay attention because this is an advanced method, is I will slam the table as hard as I possibly can. You can ask my players. I slam the table as hard as I possibly can with my right fist. I make a fist and I slam it straight down, and most times it'll bounce up, re-roll it, or it'll cock itself to right where it needs to be. Now,
I assume you shout,
this
"Hey!"
me,
while you do that, right?
it, I'll shout something. I'll be like, "God damn it, bang!" Now,
So
I do this for everything. I do this for my die. I do it for theirs. I do it for whatever. And here's the other thing: if now I won't penalize anyone for other die that are jarred from it. So let's say I like to do this method. I like to encourage my players to do this. It's not mandatory, but I like to have them do it. Like, let's say my rogue is making a sneak attack roll, and she rolls a d20, but also in the same pool, she puts her d4 for the dagger and the 2d6s she has. She rolls them. The d6 and the d4 are flat as fuck, d20 cocked. I slam the table, and I knock the d20 to where it needs to be, but I knock a d6 from a 6 to a 2. I am not such an asshole to take away the damaged die or a die that was negatively affected by the readjustment. I'll say, you got
Okay.
the 6, you can keep it. Or if I slam the table and it goes from a 1 to a 6, I'll say, you can keep the 6, that's fine. But and I do that for everything. I do that for me, I do that for my players, especially with damaged die, or fun die like that, especially if it's like cocked on a 1, I slam the table and it lands on an 18. It's like, hey, I'll let you keep the 18.
that's actually a pretty good way to go on about it.
What?
I'll
It
tell you
involves a lot of punching.
the
I'm
first
not.
thing that came,
I'm not
helps
gonna
me.
do that.
the first thing that came
It
to
helps
my
me relieve
mind,
this.
first thing that came to my mind was watching Nightmare Before Christmas, and he rolls the fucking the dice, and he's like, "Snake eyes, wham!"
Yeah, exactly.
I just
Yeah.
imagine- 11.
11. It helps me to just do a quick thing. It also it keeps my players engaged, because if there's a lull in combat and someone's on their phone or they're fiddling with their fucking notepad or whatever, and I bam slam on the table, they're paying attention. They're like, oh, what happened? They're paying attention. They're aware. They're awake. They're looking at what's going on. It's
They're
just a
back in the
very
mix.
simple, dumb. Exactly. They're back in the mix. They go, what happened? There's a cocked die. It's very simple. It's very barbaric, but
Yeah.
it works for me. And
It's a means to do it, man.
Get a
That's
goddamn
pretty interesting.
club, so you can just like og smash and then just beat the table with it.
yeah, I slammed the table with the GM pistol like Ian did.
Yeah, his dangerous weaponry that he brought to every game.
Oh, Jesus.
You're gonna have to get a gavel next.
Hey, that might work.
Quiet on set. Quiet on the court.
Well, it also shows the finality of the verdict as you
Yep.
beat the shit out of the table and wake up your neighbors.
So what's another house rule?
So, like, okay, so a house rule that, I mean, a kind of generalized thing is stuff like on-the-fly rules calls that either end up being permanent or
Yeah,
because they just
how
work
do you
better.
guys deal with that?
So the way I deal with on-the-fly rules is, and this is when I do it as well, so that way you guys know when like it might be a good time to implement it. Is if you need to look up a rule, you don't know exactly where it is, or it's like one line or something like that, instead of taking 10 goddamn minutes to dig through the book, or books as the case may be, instead, what I do is I'll make it very clear. I don't know this exact rule, but here's how it's going to work for now. I will look it up after the game's over. And you know I've done that many times in Shadowrun because it's a goddamn textbook, and trying to keep up with all that is like impossible.
Yeah.
Yeah, Shadowrun is crazy.
But that's how I handle it. What do you guys do?
What I will do is very similar, and I actually have it built into my the way I run games. Every time something happens, and this happens more often than you'd think, honestly, with my players just being varying experience levels. let's say there's a rule of like how much health do you recover from a medical check, from a first aid check in D&D. I don't fucking know. I'll say you get 1 HP back from it. Well, I know for a fact you don't, but let's say I make the call that you get 1 HP. And I see someone pull out their phone or their tablet. I say, stop, don't look it up. Don't worry about it, we're moving on. Because I've got people in my table who want to look it up, who want to know, who've got to know. They got to know. I got to know it right now. Because I have, not naming any names, but for those of you listening, you know who you are. I have a know-it-all. I have another GM, and I have a new player. And what I do is I blast right through it. We just keep going. We're rolling. Bam, 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 bam. Don't worry about it. I make a rules call. Most times it's not the popular one. But when the game ends, after every single game I run, I have a little section. I'll play my theme music, especially for Heroes Under Heaven. I had theme music. And I would always go around the table, and kind of similar to the XP thing you did for Shadowrun, is I would ask for everyone's feedback. And I always, every single time, go, what are your comments, questions, concerns, and favorite moments? Because comments can bring up oh yeah, this rule. Question being, hey, is this going to be a thing? Concerns are slightly negative where they're like, I didn't feel I got this attention and this and that. But it ends on a positive note of favorite moments where they're talking about the most fun they had. And sometimes it's what other players did, but it allows them on their turn, post credits, and during the credit music to discuss some of the things we missed, or some of the rules we glossed over, so that we can move on, we can make adjustments, we can remember these things. But that's what I do, and I do it every single game with every single person. I say, and I'll even do it fast, like YouTubers do, like be sure to like, comment, subscribe to that. But I'll go comments, questions, concerns, favorite moments. Everybody, let's hear it. Starting with you, Callie. Go ahead. I will. That's what I do. And that's when that moment comes up, is during the concerns, comments, or questions.
Okay.
Fair enough. My means of that kind of thing is just make the call, move on, and if someone wants to look it up later, then we'll cover the specifics of it after the game is over. But I don't really want to uproot everything. Now, if it's like a quick reference, like how many feet can you jump? We know it's based on the strength score, but it's good to look something up like that. And if it's real quick. But if it's like one of those obscure rules, like in this situation, given this thing, and a blah blah blah, so we got to really investigate it. I'll say yes, you can, no, you can't. This is what happens. We'll cover this at the end of game, and then I'll do a kind of after action review after the game is over. It's like, hey, what do you guys think? And blah blah blah, and we go from there. That being said, sometimes with a lot of game systems, things aren't always they're balanced and they work, but they're not always good for the setting. And I've covered this previously in one of our other episodes. The rules are a suggestion, but even if the rules in the book are a suggestion and you can kind of go your own way, when you decide to go your own way as a GM, please take mental note of that, or just jot something down on a pad and remember that. So if it comes up again, you're consistent, because it's all about consistency. You can change rules to fit the setting, to fit your game, and it makes the experience better for people, and it tailors it to you and your adventure and your players, and everything's good. But if you're inconsistent, it ruins it.
I actually had that happen with the beginner box for Edge of the Empire. It had been a while since I'd played it, and I hadn't run it for forever. And I made a quick, just in my head, rules call about movement and actions and stuff like that. And I accidentally, without realizing that I was inconsistent, favored one character over another. And unbeknownst to me, two of my other players are very upset by it, and they brought it up in the comments, questions, concerns, favorite moments. And I was like, "Oh shit!" And I explained, I'm like, "Look, this is a beginner thing. We're all learning this, but that's the thing: is consistency is key. Like equality, much like in society, is very important. And it's you have got, if you make a rules call, at least have some logic behind it, or make some way of remembering it, or write it down, as Andrew said, so that it is fair and just all throughout the game, so that there's not perceived favoritism, even when there's not favoritism.
Mm-hmm.
It's a big thing. It goes a long way.
Yeah. Getting into favoritism is a
Oh yeah.
whole other ballgame of how to like avoid it, how to mitigate for it, and all
Yep.
that stuff. But yeah, you want to stay as far away from that as humanly possible.
Episode 34, favoritism and how to handle it.
Nepotism and what it damages.
Some bitch.
Now, that's the thing is, there are some times when I will say, all right, look up the rule, it's fine, let's figure out what this is right now real quick. You already have it pulled up, let's, with this and that. But generally, I don't want anyone looking up anything unless it's immediately related to the character or the next thing they're going to do, because it can take them out of it, or they won't listen to a description. I will tell you, that pisses me off more than anything else, man, is when somebody is not paying attention to a description. Because it's like, dude, what the fuck am I here for? Like,
Oh, yeah, that's happened to
DMs
me so many times. It's like,
oh
hey,
yeah,
all right, so what do you
yeah,
want to do on your turn? What is everything? It's like, would you not paying
yeah.
attention to the
It
last
is.
3 turns before yours and the description? No.
I can definitely name a few players who are very prone to that. But that's very important. So like having them not look up rules or just not have any distractions at all is pretty key. Like my girlfriend Katie is running Strahd, and I had it. She set a new rule for her table. Um, I was looking up stuff on my phone for work because I had to film. I had a big film later that night, and then another one of the players was looking on his phone, and she saw 2 phones at once, and she was like, you know what, fuck this, no phones. I don't want to hear it. She set a rule of tell me why you're looking at your phone every time you pull it out. Mandatory. This is it. Because she doesn't want for anyone to lose the descriptions. And it's very fair because the descriptions are intense and they're like wonderful. She doesn't want to repeat herself. She just wants to go. She wants to like bam, 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 bam. And that's a very fair rule. Much along with anything else, like why are you pulling the book out? Why are you looking at this? If you're going to get in a snack, that's fine. You're not going too far. You can still hear what's going on. But like, why are you pulling out your phone? Why are you looking at your laptop? What are you doodling? Like, what are you doing? And that's a rule that she has, and it's very fair, very, very, very fair.
Yeah, the not distracting thing is a real big issue for a lot of people.
I,
There's one thing that I've seen somebody do. I've never implemented it because I think it might be a little too harsh. But something I've seen is if it gets to your turn and you don't start describing something in 6 seconds, then you drop an initiative.
now, if I didn't have new players in mind, I would absolutely do that because, like, there have been multiple scenarios where I've had a player go, it's on their turn, and they go, all right, I'm like, what do you do? I'm like, hang on. And then I pulled them aside and I was like, why didn't you know what you were going to do? It's like, well, because so many things changed in combat and there were so many different things to consider. I'm like, your character doesn't know everything. You should just do the first thing you and your character would want to do and move on.
I actually just counter-argued against myself while you were saying that, and I realized that it actually isn't so bad because if you're paying attention, then you have however many minutes of everybody else's turn,
Exactly.
including enemies' turns, to think about what you're going to do.
Yep. It's not something I would put on a new player, and that's why I
No.
haven't. Is because I have a new player, and because I wouldn't do it to a particular player at my table, I can't do it to everyone else. It wouldn't be fair. Maybe in the next game I have, now that this particular player is drastically more experienced in tabletop, I might have it to where, like, if you don't know what you're doing, you drop an initiative, or we just skip your turn. And, like, that's, you snooze, you lose. Like, I know, from my perspective, the second something happens, I go, all right, here's my plan A, here's my plan B. Plan A is I want to light that big thing on fire. If they kill the big thing before I can go, I'll do a cantrip at whatever. And that's happened. When I played Porter in your game, Nick, I would always go, I want to put curse on big guy, followed by a thing. Or if that can't happen, I'll cantrip somebody with an Eldritch Blast. Easy peasy. So when my turn comes around, I'm like, okay, guy's gone, Eldritch Blast done. And it's actually a lot like Dragon Age Origins parameters, where you can set different things that the characters can do. And it's good to think of that and build tactics for your character based on how you can do it. So that you don't have to think every fucking time what's happening. And to the point where I took this player and I was like, look, if there are 3 characters around you, do this move. If there are these characters around you, maybe consider doing this. Or if someone's below half health, do that. But I don't think it's terribly harsh to go, you've had several minutes to think about what you're going to do, and you don't have anything. I'm moving on. Combat is long enough, y'all.
Yeah, it really is.
Combat is crazy.
See,
combat can go.
I also try to encourage people to do things that may not seem mechanically useful or like possibly just straight up insane. So in the game before last game in Legends of Latir, Andrew, this is like the highlight of this combat. They were fighting a giant squid, and he wanted to see if he could make sure to not get caught by the giant squid. So what he did is he said, Nick, I have a bar of soap. And I was like, okay, what? So after he vigorously lathered himself up as his action, he proceeded to get mad bonuses for against the grapple.
That's awesome.
It was an absolute riot. It was great.
I'm a soap bar. You can't catch me.
He's like, I'm going to face my greatest fears so that I can defeat this foe. Grabs a bar of soap, looking at it intently, and starts rubbing it vigorously all over my body. And I'm like, what the fuck is he doing? Trying to catch me now. I was like, oh shit. Did this motherfucker? He did just. Oh.
I had to stop. I had to do the thing. I stopped for a moment, like, okay, what the fuck just happened?
Dude, it was brilliant. It was absolutely brilliant.
That's pretty funny.
Yeah, it's absolutely brilliant.
But I like having that stuff in because sometimes people seem like they're experienced players more often feel like they are like restricted by certain rule sets. Is what I've come to discover.
Now this lends to the next topic I think we're all thinking about. When players do cool stuff that isn't exactly in the rules. And this is a very popular thing in tabletop referred to as the rule of cool. And the rule of cool can be like billions of different things and different calls and all kinds of different stuff. But I know Nick uses it, I'm pretty sure uses it more often than the rest of us. And Nick, I want you to take the wheel on what the rule of cool is and how best to use it.
I use it
that
pretty
in and of itself, and how you use it is a house rule in and of itself.
Right. It's basically the license to house rule. Is effectively what the rule of cool is. So in any RPG you'll ever play, it says, okay, if you don't want to follow this rule, or you don't think that this is right, or it doesn't fit your game, then you can change it. You could do something else. Just make it fair and consistent, kind of like what we were talking about earlier. And so what you could do with the rule of cool is, let's take the soap lathering thing from a minute ago. What I gave him was advantage to get out of the grapple, because for the monster specifically, unlike if you're grappling like a player, that's a set DC to get out of the grapple. Yep. So I said, okay, you have advantage on it because you are slippery as fuck. And even though there's nothing in the rules, like if you go into the item list and you read soap, it's not going to say you have advantage to get out of this. It will just say, hey, it's a bar of soap. You know what this does. Clean yourself. And so I had to come up with something on the fly because I thought it was a cool idea. Like, it was a great idea to spend his turn like preparing for what is inevitably going to happen. So when he did it, I was like, you can have this bonus. You can have this benefit until the soap runs out. And he continued using the soap. He's the cleanest barbarian the world has ever known.
Yeah. My my focus on the rule of cool is a lot more restrictive, because the rule of cool to me, I feel, is that there's a willingness to suspend disbelief that has to be proportioned to how awesome this moment is. Like there's no reason or rhyme why someone can run straight up a wall for 15 feet uh, in the real world. And a lot of these games, they go above and beyond to make the characters so much more superhuman than
Yeah.
initially expected. Like it's not realism, because if it were realism, like hyper realism, we wouldn't want to play it because it would suck.
Right. Also, yeah, I was
We'd have
about to
to pay
say
taxes and
you
shit.
literally did that last game. You ran like 30 feet on the wall.
Yeah, and the thing is, uh, when looking into something like that, is this a cool moment? Yes. Okay. Is this cool moment going to break whatever encounter is currently being looked at? If the answer is no, then I am cool with it. But if the answer is it might, it's a balancing act.
So
Like
so
if
when you
somebody
hold on,
go ahead.
when you talk about breaking the encounter, you should probably clarify on what you mean by that, because when I think of breaking the encounter, I think making it not fun. So if somebody does something really
Mm.
awesome and mechanically it's not really, it's kind of outside the rules, but there's nothing strict against it, but the story it turns into is awesome or hilarious or whatever, then I'm gonna
Yeah.
go with that.
Yeah. No, no,
Yeah.
absolutely.
I think what Nick is trying to get at is like, what is breaking? Would you consider breaking being engaging in PvP to where you win the encounter, or would you consider breaking it being like when Sir Edward beat the shit out of a werewolf and did fire damage to him when he really shouldn't have?
You really shouldn't have, but you fucking elbow dropped a goddamn werewolf into a campfire, so I thought that
Yeah.
was good enough.
Yeah.
So
Uh,
so by break you mean not fun or not
yes. By
coherent?
break, I mean goes either A, to where it one or several of the other players are significantly negatively affected. Like it's not fun for them. You can see, like, you can see it and you can hear it. This was a complete bullcrap thing and it's affected them
Yeah.
negatively. Or it allows for such a large contingent of incoherency. Like it's so far beyond the ability to really manage. Like if it's a cool moment that does something really cool and it succeeds the encounter and it turns the tide in the favor of the players, that's great. But if it's like if it's something that completely alters the way the game is being played by both the other players and the player that's attempting to do this action, uh, it it's got to be, it has to be cool enough to be, it's got to be cool enough to outweigh the implausibility, but it can't be so
Yeah.
implausible that it doesn't make sense to the situation. You
Right.
know,
I
like
I I def I definitely am in the same boat with you where I'm concerned about what cool moments break a scene, but in my mind, what I deem like breaking a scene with cool stuff isn't so much player fun, because that goes without saying with every scene. If I see someone not having fun or someone doing something that's abusive, I'll pull them aside. I will pump the fucking brakes on a game, because that is most important. My number one rule is player fun is paramount. So if somebody goes, I'm not having fun, I'm not playing this game anymore, I'll be like, player fun's paramount. That's cool, man. See you later. I hope you come back. Um,
yeah,
but for me, what is breaking a scene, because that's always understood that player fun is paramount, is the most important thing no matter what, period, is what breaking a scene for me is taking away my autonomy or my ability to tell the story I want to tell. For instance,
exactly.
um, there was a scene where a character in my Tales of the Orient game called Heroes Under Heaven was taken captive by an aboleth, an evil mastermind of the Underdark and the Far Realm and the blah blah blah. They took him and took over his mind. And I was like, okay, cool. They got to go fight this aboleth. They got to do this and that, and they got to fight him. It's going to be cool. It's going to be intense. It's going to be difficult. It's going to be a cool encounter. They're going to be down on person. It's going to be great. I forgot that they had a favor from a god, an actual god, by what's his name?
Wukong the Monkey
Sun
King?
Wukong.
Is that
Sun Wukong, the monkey trickster god himself, and they said, we're going to call on that favor. And I stepped away from the table for a second and punched the wall and was like, fuck! Because I, by no fault of my own, killed my own plot. Now, I could have said no. I could have made them roll for it. I could have said, all right, see if he's available. But no. Rule of cool is you're saving the day. And it did break the scene. The difference, though, is I'm okay with the rule of cool breaking everything I have. Like, one time in the Underdark, I had a whole scene set up where there was a barracks and a guard gate and, like, a whole checkpoint through a tunnel. The Warlock showed up and did, oh god, what was it? Cone of Cold. And killed everyone. You hear my voice crack. Everyone in one spell killed all of them. And I was like, you know what? Fuck you, that was awesome. Like, that, all my plot, there was like a treasure chest full of loot and a note and all this, whatever. That was more cool than anything else I had. And I will always give player autonomy, I'll let it trump my autonomy in moments like that because it's more important to the joint storytelling effort. So, from my perspective, rule of cool can cover anything except player fun, and I mean anything. If they're like, no, fuck you, the Earth is flat, I'm like, yeah, you're right, the Earth is flat. Way to go.
I'm in the same camp. As long as the players are going to have fun with it, and it's not so outlandish that the cool factor is lost.
Yeah.
Because that can happen too. It's a really fine balance.
So Nick, I am very familiar with your rule of cool, and it's very much like Exalted. Why don't you tell us about how you use rule of cool?
Well, the most frequent way I use it is if you describe in detail something awesome that you're doing, if it's an attack in combat, or if it's even more mundane stuff or just a skill check, if you can describe it and make it cool usually without going like crazy over the top, depending on power levels and what the game is and whatnot, then I usually will give just a straight up bonus to it. Like for 5th ed, it's usually an advantage. If it's Shadowrun, usually it'll give you extra dice or something like that.
Or like you'll give someone and be like, oh, I got 4 and they needed 5, and they're like, okay, well, you did do this thing and you had this tool, so I'll just give you this extra success or this extra point.
Yeah, sometimes it just results in an auto success if you can describe it well enough that it's just infeasible for you to not be able to do it.
Yeah.
Obviously, that doesn't always take, because sometimes you need to, because even if you can describe something really well, the character might still fail from some factor or another.
You've got to have that conflict.
Yeah. Otherwise, you're not really playing a certain system. You're just freeform narrating, which isn't a bad thing, but there are kind of rules there for a reason.
Definitely. That's the thing, is that was always something I wanted to do, but you have to have the right player group to do it. Like, because some players can describe scenes more intrinsically than the other. Like, I know Xander always wants to describe every backflip, every hand strike, everything. And if the rule of cool happened for Xander every time, it'd be every fucking turn, because everything's gonna be so cool. But certain players can't have that, and so I could never do that. But I always wanted to. I always wish I could. Because that's what I like the most. Because I always give that type of performance. Like that's because we all have a very similar mindset about role performances. Like, all right, well, I take out my this and I do that and I do it this way, accenting this thing and supplementing it with this, and someone assists me, and it's always, oh yeah, it's fucking cool. Like the sniper shot from the helicopter, like that. There shouldn't even have been a role for that shit. It's just been like, all right, okay, you guys have everything in your fucking corner. You get in Christ.
But at the same time, have the
Yeah,
actual
yeah.
roll, even though we knew we were going to succeed with 40 bajillion dice, it the fact that you got to roll it and then count it out and then just see how hard that guy got fucked with that sniper round was
Mhm.
in and of itself was quite a fun time.
Oh yeah.
That's why I usually don't go with averages for like dice pools or rolls because like part of it is
Yeah,
just like how
'cause they
hard
have,
do you succeed or fail?
and that's always the thing is we saw this in the God, what was it? The World of Darkness thing you ran just recently. I can't remember the name of it, but there were times when I got like 3 successes on 4 dice, and it's like, holy shit, man, that's way above average. And like, you know, if I had described it, I'd be like, okay, you get 1 success from that. Whereas with the dice roll, I could have just gotten, crazy numbers. But yeah,
Hmm,
got to have the right players for that,
that's true.
that type of rule of cool.
Yeah, well, I usually try to find whoever is going to play my game to be that kind of player, or at least like be accepting of that's going to happen. Because some people are way more hardcore into the we need to stick by the rules and like have it much more
Yeah,
I don't know crunchy I guess like you gotta like what the dice say goes. If your character dies on turn
yep,
2 of the
yep.
first encounter, then so be it.
Her head gets cut off, and she spews spiders off into the sunset. Hashtag not bitter.
Eh,
Um,
'cause oh, man, I
no,
didn't
I
want to
know,
kill
I know.
her, but it happened.
Yep, that's the thing, man. Memorable character right there
That's
from
right.
2 games.
So that was really cool character death, I gotta say, which we're gonna be talking about next time.
And I'm very excited to talk about that because there are hundreds and billions of so much time we could spend talking about it, and we will. Very excited for it. I love talking about death. It's as interesting as life, in my opinion.
Yeah, I have a specific love-hate relationship with character death, seeing as my D&D character that runs in Nick's game, he
Yeah,
dies on a
man.
regular basis.
Fuck you. Wait, hang on. Have you died since I've been gone? You piece of shit.
I have
Mhm.
officially died since you've been gone. Yeah.
He got power worded
Since
killed.
you've been gone.
At
Oh
that
wow,
point.
really?
Yeah,
Yeah.
because he mouthed
Fa-
off to the
That's
wrong
awesome.
person. He mouthed off to Faradrex. And he was done with his shit at
You
that
need
point.
Sir Edward. That's what you need. You need Sir Edward in your life. Piece of shit.
We could go all in on that next time. But
Yeah.
for now, we one house. I just thought of this thing. One house rule that some people use, or as a concept, I guess, is certain limitations to character creation. The reason I bring that up is because I was thinking of Shadowrun, and the reason why I was thinking about Shadowrun
Yeah,
is
yeah.
because I was thinking of the Mystic Adept and how broken that became for my game to the
Yeah.
point where people stopped having fun.
Well,
Yeah.
I think what that was deep down was a core misunderstanding of the rules on Skylar's part and your part, and then we blamed the Mystic Adept build because like, I don't know. I feel like there was more at play there. But yeah, there are certain limitations that one should have. Like with D&D, especially before Xanathar's Guide to Everything, which is out now, by the way. Definitely check that out. It's awesome. Um, when the Unearthed Arcana was still in beta, people were like, hey, can I do this? I would say, fuck no. Absolutely not.
Oh yeah, Unearthed Arcana. Mine it was a
It,
big
it
a big hard no for me.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
was tested. I didn't know about it. Like I could look at something and still be like, this seems broken to me, man.
Also, we were like 3 months into the first time I was running 5th ed, so I didn't want to have like 1,000 books and classes and all sorts of rules to keep up with because I was already
And like
trying to figure out
this
the ones that were already there.
and
Yeah.
this one article on this one page, one time, like it's no, man. I ain't about that life. Um, but now that I actually really like the house rule that D&D gives you. It talks about it at length in Xanathar's Guide to Everything. and it's called the Player Handbook +1 rule. You get for your character creation to choose the Player Handbook and one other book. You
I like
cannot
that.
have anything else from any other book except those two books.
I
Player Handbook.
immediately like that.
I
Oh,
love
yeah,
that. That's beautiful.
Now, that's the official rule for the Adventures League. Now, the reason why Xanathar's Guide to Everything was made was for this in particular, because it has stuff from Elemental Evil. It doesn't have any races, it doesn't have any tools, it's just got, like, character stuff. It's got some Dungeon Master stuff, but it's got, like, extra class options. The Sword Coast Adventures Guide has more backgrounds. Volo's Guide to Monsters has more races. And so, like, speaking frankly, it keeps special snowflakes in fucking check, and that's very important. Because if someone says, "Well, I want to play a Yontai character race from Volos, but with the background of Paladin of the Sun from Volos and the Sun Monk background from Adventurer's Guide," what it's like, no, fuck you. You haven't even used the player's handbook. Stop it. Like, you have gone rogue.
And you didn't
And,
even pick that class.
yeah.
I was about to say that. You stole the words out of my mouth there, bruh.
Gotta be
It's
faster
a
on the
very
draw.
good, and that's one that I'll say is whenever I do Pathfinder is I'll limit, like, it has to be Paizo published, or this and that. I'll have a limitation on what books you can use.
See, what I'll usually do is if you want to make something kind of crazy, first of all, this better not be your first character in this setting. Second of all, it has to conform to whatever setting it is. But third and most importantly is if you have something from multiple books, then you best, and I mean this, straight up print out those pages that have those rules on it. So I could be like, how did you do that? And you can hand me a piece of paper without opening a book, without flipping through 30 pages. Just be like, this is what I did. And I could look at it and be like, cool, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And by the same mindset, if somebody wants to play something really special and stupid, and I kind of remember you saying this in the early days, like the mid days of Shadowrun, of if you want to play something crazy, you have to earn it. And, like, it can't be your first character. You have to experience the game the way it was meant to. Like, I could even see someone saying you can't play a additional race from the player's handbook of 5th Ed. Like, you can't play a half-elf or a half-orc or a dragonborn or a gnome unless you've played D&D before. So, like, the only races you have are human, dwarf, elf, halfling. Like, that's it. And that's fair, because it's like, experience it first and then see what you like. Then go from there. Then earn it. We'll see how you handle it.
Somebody plays a dwarf? Ha 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 ha. Yeah, right.
Yeah. That's what I'm very glad about. I talked about this before the podcast, y'all. But there is a type of gaming where you take a random character sheet and the players don't know what their stats are before they start, and they just start figuring them out as they go, and the Dungeon Master has all the character sheets. I threw in some short characters because I know no one was going to play them. So,
Gnome one
suck
was
on
going to
that,
play
y'all.
them.
Gnome 1. Gnome 1.
Good. Alright, I succeeded in my goal of making Xander puke.
So, thank you, everybody, for attending. This has been Higgs Cat. No, I'm just kidding.
This has been Puns Cast after the Higgs.
Shit.
To the Higgs.
After the Hicks. Yeah.
Today we're talking about Pathfinder and how it held up.
Oh shit, that's a
Fuck.
that just reminds me of something that I was thinking about doing as well. So, eventually I want to run a Starfinder game. The difficult part in that is that since there's a lot of rules in there that are not quite the same as 5th Ed, that could be a problem. Because, for instance, attacks of opportunity are done differently in that one, as well as, like, movement and fighting.
I thought it was just Pathfinder.
It pretty much is, but, so, Starfinder, seeing that Advantage was a great idea from 5th Ed,
Yeah.
Snuck in some things that aren't exactly called advantage and disadvantage, but it is the same thing, effectively
Yep.
for the dice rolls.
Because it's such a great system.
It is. It's really good.
Yeah, it takes a lot of the bullshit out of the out of the wings.
But I'm thinking of people who played 5th Ed and not Pathfinder, because yeah,
Yeah.
Starfinder's basically Pathfinder in space. There's even conversion shit for it in the back of the book. In case you want to do like Space Elf or Space Dwarf. Who would want to do Space Dwarf? Come on. But there like some of them, like if you're moving from like Wizards of the Coast to Paizo, I guess is an easier, broader thing.
Yeah, yeah.
There's enough differences that it could really mess up somebody's jive
Everything.
and everything.
Yeah.
So I was
I'm
thinking
down.
like there's probably some things that I'm going to keep from 5th Ed in and move
Maybe
that into
some
Starfinder.
how you say house rules.
Well, you think that's
But yeah,
think that's about it? We covered everything.
I think that's all the house rules we can get in terms of a general note. I'm sure we've
yeah.
got
I mean,
house
there's tons
rules
of specific stuff.
specific games
But
we can go into. Like we've all got Shadowrun house rules, and we've all got different kinds of stuff like that.
the end note is like pay attention to what, like write down your house rules if you make them, make it known and consistent to everybody there.
And especially if you know you're going to have them before you start, or you have expectations. Like we've been saying, just start your game with it. When you go through character creation with everybody at your table, just say, hey, here's this rule, here's this, here's what I expect. Like, communication is paramount. Like, it's very important because it makes sure expectations are managed and no one gets upset when something is met or not met.
That's right.
Yep.
But yeah,
Absolutely.
there you go.
3 GMs to you. Be consistent.
That's right.
Write shit down.
Three-
Read the books.
Oh,
You say that every time.
read your
You
shit.
Because it's so important.
Yeah, but you should know
Just
that by
fucking
now.
read constantly. So
Yeah.
I don't know when we're gonna do it, but listeners at home, on the horizon.
Listeners riding the bus on Abercorn to work.
Oh,
Ooh.
ooh,
Rather specific.
that's very specific.
I'm
All right.
watching you. I know where you are. I am the GM.
Yes.
That's right, Death. We know you're listening. So listeners at home, I don't know if we've announced this or not, but we did the World of Darkness game. We had a lot of fun doing that for the spooky World of Darkness.
Halloween.
We're going to have a similar game like that, but instead of Nick running it, I'm going to be running it. And instead of Halloween, it'll be Christmas. And instead of World of Darkness, it'll be Call of Cthulhu. The episode will be titled Christmas with Cthulhu, y'all.
That's gonna be so much fun.
And it's going to be a lot of fun, so keep an eye out for that. I think we might get Cade in on it. We might get, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see if he's down. I know
he had a great
Ollie-
time with the World of Darkness thing.
Oh, yeah, that's good. That's good. Then we'll definitely try and get him back on. Yeah, I could tell he had a lot of fun. But yeah, keep an eye out for that. I'm so excited for that. It's the Call of Cthulhu is such a cool system. Mark your calendars, everybody. There are 3 things you need to look out for around Christmas time. Actually, Christmas, the new Star Wars movie, and then Christmas with Cthulhu.
Yes. I'm talking to you, Stan, in your Uber right now. We know you're listening.
Yeah, we know you're playing this loud enough for your Uber driver to hear, and he hates you, and he's from Puerto Rico.
We're talking to the Uber driver too.
We're talking
Everybody.
to you, Enrique.
Brittany.
Man, Brittany, the male Puerto Rican Uber driver. Gotcha.
That's right.
There we go. Never ever in 1,000 years, when this podcast gets dug up, we will know. That's the only time it'll happen. And they'll dig us up and they'll be like, "Guys, this show's hilarious." And we'll be like, "I can die again now."
That's right. Let's record it, burn it to a DVD, bury it in the ground, and then someone later on will dig it up.
Fucking
We'll
time
burn
capsule.
it to We'll burn it to a 1 terabyte hard drive with only this in it, and they'll go, "What the fuck is this?" And then important.
And then Brittany will freak out. But
And then Brittany will freak the fuck out.
But we'll reconvene next time when we
Next
talk about
time.
death
Yes.
and how cheerful
And
that
it's-
is.
Oh man.
Oh God.
All right. Well.
Until then,
Yeah.
enjoy your Thanksgiving or whatever equivalent holiday if you have one is.
Yeah. That's right.
Your
Be-
harvest festivals.
Be sure to celebrate American expansionism.
Mmm.
Mm,
I love
tasty.
me some expansionism. It's great.
Tasty expansionism.
Goes great with gravy and mashed potatoes.
Absolutely. And suffering.
Delicious,
You put a little bit of
delicious,
cranberry.
nourishing suffering.
Put a little bit of cranberry sauce on your suffering. It's all better.
It has
All
less
right.
vitamin
Say
B12 than an energy drink.
Goodbye, everybody. We'll see you
See you
next time.
guys.
Goodbye.